So non-discretionary fiscal policy, also known as automatic and built-in stabilizers. So first, let's sketch the government budget. So on the x-axis, I have equilibrium income. On the y-axis, I have G and TY. So the straight line is what government expenditure looks like, and if I draw the tax revenue, this is what it will look like, the amount paid in taxes. So the point of intersection, this point, let's call this Y1. Y1 is public sector financial balance. So all points before this are deficit. Let's use a different color for this. This region is deficit, and this entire region is government budget surplus. Now, automatic stabilizers are desirable, and this is because they correct the economy without any intervention from the government. So let's say your equilibrium income rises, right? So if equilibrium income rises, you are bound to spend more in the form of consumption, in the form of investments, right? So, sorry, not investment, just consumption. Yeah. But if this rises, this means that you will pay more in the form of taxes to the government. And this means withdrawals rise. So if withdrawals rise, this acts as a corrective measure to control expansion of an economy, to control inflation. So the automatic stabilizer over here, the average tax rate has, without any intervention from the government, controlled the economy from expanding too much and has controlled inflation. Because of this rise in withdrawals, there is a slight reduction in Y. Let's use a small arrow. A slight reduction in Y, and this lessens the risk of Y greater than Y star. So this lessens the risk of an economy expanding too much, of an economy overheating itself. On the other hand, say if your equilibrium income falls, consumption will fall, and there is a risk of an economy tending towards a slump. But since this falls, the amount you pay in the form of taxes also falls, which implies that your withdrawals fall. When withdrawals fall, your multiplier rises, right? So what this does is this slightly increases your equilibrium income, which means that the risk of a deflationary gap has been reduced. So this means that the risk of a deflationary gap, that Y less than Y star, has slightly reduced. So the average tax rate has successfully, without any intervention of the government, reduced the risk of an economy tending to a slump. But built-in stabilizer, the stability depends on responsiveness of tax rate to equilibrium income. So this means that if there is a progressive tax rate, right, this implies that marginal tax rate will rise. This means if the marginal tax rate rises, a rise in equilibrium income will lead to a rise in average tax rate, because now the marginal tax rate is higher than the initial tax rate. So the average tax rate rises, which leads to a fall in the size of the multiplier. Let me just write this down. Multiplier. The size of the multiplier falls And what will happen is the inflationary effect of boom is controlled. So the more progressive the tax system is, the greater is the economy's built-in stability and the lower the severity of business fluctuations. But the thing is that automatic stabilizers can only lower major inflation or recession. This means that they cannot automatic stabilizers can not completely correct. So this measure is not corrective. For the time being, they only lower major inflation or recession. Also, if marginal tax rate rises, this can act as a disincentive to work as your after-tax reward of work falls. This means that there's a risk that supply of labor also falls because say if you can earn the same amount of money by working less hours, you'll probably work less hours because of the higher tax rate with each rise in with your rise in income, now you'll be now you won't really be motivated to work. Also say an economy is in a recession and is moving towards economic recovery. Automatic stabilizers will reduce the magnitude of the recovery. This is called fiscal drag, right? Because if your equilibrium income rises, tax rate rises because average tax rate rises because of the rise in the marginal tax rate. This will lead to higher amounts being paid in the form of taxes, and this dampens the magnitude of economic recovery. So this was all about non-discretionary fiscal policy, automatic and built-in stabilizers, and their limitations. In the next video, we'll talk about discretionary fiscal policy, where the government deliberately changes the tax system or their government expenditure to create an impact on aggregate expenditure.